in that ye provoke me unto wrath with the works of your hands, burning incense unto other gods, in the land of Egypt, whither you be gone to dwell, that ye might cut yourself off, and that you might be a curse and a reproach among all nations of the earth. So if you're involved in idolatry, you have placed a curse upon yourself. Now, I'm going to offend some people, but I've got to say this. Okay? There are certain religions that actually get involved in idolatry. Okay? Oh, immediately many of your minds went to the Catholic Church. That may be true, but there are Protestant denominations that do the same thing. They'll have statues of Jesus around in their sanctuary. They'll have pictures hanging on the wall. And when you walk by those things, many times there are demonic spirits attached to them. You walk by and you get an eerie feeling. And I've seen people in Protestant churches stop in front of those things and just look there in awe. And they reverence that thing. In doing so, you are entering into idolatry. You are entering into the very thing that it said. Why do you think God said, don't make any graven images? Don't make these things. Because in doing so, you come very close and can slip over into idolatry. I said this before. Yeah, crosses, and they wear these around their neck and all that stuff. And I've seen people in times of desperation grab that. Folks, it's not some material objects that's going to save you. It's the blood of the Lord Jesus Christ. Very simple. We had a very close friend of my wife's, and she was into ceramics years ago, and she made a bust, or a picture of a head. It was a head. And it's supposed to be the head of Jesus, and she did it all up and gave it to us. And we had it in our house for quite a while. And I got to feeling uneasy about this thing. Very, very uneasy. Well, my wife did too. So there was a point in time that there was an accident. And the thing busted into a bunch of pieces. And then what didn't get busted into smaller pieces, I made smaller. Okay, I shouldn't have said that. I hope she doesn't listen to this. But we got rid of that. And there was a peace that came in as a result of just getting rid of that thing. Okay? Was there anything necessarily wrong with that? I don't know. But I do know I did not feel right when I'd be in the house and that thing was in the house. Free. We don't need that stuff. You know, it's Jesus in our heart that we need. Okay? Anyway, idolatry. Watch what you do. The next thing, I want to go through this too. Adulterers. We talked, I think, some about this, but I don't know if we did or not. But in Deuteronomy, the 22nd chapter, verse 22, and people say, well, that's all Old Testament stuff. Did Jesus deal with adultery when he walked on the shores of Galilee? Yes, he did. Did he say it was wrong? Yes, he did. Did he say it was sin? Yes, he did. You have to come to this conclusion. A spiritual law, whether it precedes the law or it comes after the law, is still a law. A spiritual law or spiritual truth is the truth regardless of what dispensation we try to shove it in. Okay? God is God. All right, in Deuteronomy, the 22nd chapter, verse number 22. If a man be found lying with a woman married to an husband, then they shall both of them die, both the man that lay with the woman and the woman. So shall thou put away evil from Israel. In other words, the answer to adultery in the Old Testament was kill them. Pretty hard, pretty straightforward. Kill them. Guess what? They won't commit adultery anymore. It stopped. Again, to break that curse in the New Testament, Jesus provided the way if we accept it and apply it. An adulterous woman, Numbers 5:27. And when he hath made her to drink the water. Now you go back and read that whole thing, because they're brought before the priest and they make some bitter water, okay? And when he hath made her to drink the water, then it shall come to pass that if she be defiled and hath done trespass against her husband, that the water that caused the curse shall enter into her and become bitter, and her belly shall swell, and her thighs shall rot, and the woman shall be cursed among her people. That doesn't sound pleasant to me, okay? But that's exactly what would happen. Because remember what we said earlier, a curse without cause does not light. Remember that? A curse without cause does not light. So she could drink the water, and if she was innocent, guess what would happen? Nothing. But if she drank that water and something had happened, guess what? It's not going to be pleasant. A curse is coming upon her. Well, you see, that's what's happening to the people that belong to Jesus today. They go about their life totally unaware that they are being cursed and are under a curse. Okay. A woman who kept not her virginity until she was married. You can look that up in Deuteronomy 22:13 through 21. Disobedience to the Lord's commandment. And I'm going to go through some of these, and I never wrote down all the scriptures because I want to just go through some of them. Those who do not tithe. I'll stop there for a minute. What does it say? Malachi 3:8 through 10. I can almost quote that. I'll paraphrase it to you. Will a man rob God? Yet you say, how have we robbed thee? You have robbed me in tithes and offerings. This whole nation is cursed. Isn't that what it says? Because they robbed God. Now get a load of this. Here's what we do. We try to justify not tithing. And I'm not harping on money, other than the fact that this is a curse that you bring upon yourself. And we're talking about curses. But what happens is people say, well, I don't have to tithe, or well, I don't want to give that, or well, I'll keep this. Fine, do whatever you want to do. I'm serious with this. But you understand this, that when you break one of God's commandments, you bring a curse upon yourself. What did we just read back here? Disobedience to the Lord's commandments. That in itself is a curse. Okay? Doesn't it say even in the New Testament, bring your tithes to the storehouse on the first day of the week, that there will be no gathering when I come. Isn't that what Paul told them? He said, in other words, you give your tithes on the first day of the week so that when I come, we don't have to go through that whole situation. Jesus, when he was talking to the scribes and the Pharisees, and he talked about them, and he said, tithing, and he mentioned a couple of things there, you have done, but you've forgotten the weightier things. And he goes into their relationship and to how they relate to people. But my point was, Jesus didn't do away with tithes. And the curse that comes with not tithing is still there. It is still there. So we have this on one hand where we have people Lord, bless me financially. Lord, I just can't get ahead. Lord, it's just terrible. Oh, will you please just give me some help and relief? But on the other hand, they do not give their tithe to the Lord. Didn't he also say in Malachi that if we do that, then he'll open the windows of heaven and pour out blessings upon us that will not be able to contain? What does that mean? That means when you're obedient to the Lord in that, then God's blessings are going to overtake you. And I've got news for you. You cannot outgive God. Okay? But if you don't give to God, at least the tithe, then you are placing yourself under a curse. Super simple. Right? You all with me on that? That's what happens. But that same application, and I want to go there, is this, that in that, we do the same thing in the other things. You with me? Men talk about, well, I've never committed adultery. Yeah, Jesus said if you lust after a woman with your eyes, you've already committed adultery in your heart. You understand what I'm saying? This whole thing boils down to the attitude of our heart. The attitude of our heart. Well, our heart has to be right before God for us to get rid of these things that are causing us these kind of problems. All right? Now, I want us to look at something. I talked to you about how to break these curses, and I can go on with these, and at this point I'm not going to, okay? Because some of them I really don't want to talk to you about. I mean, I don't want to talk to you through this video. If you have issues with some of these yourself and you need help in breaking those curses, I'll be glad to talk to you individually, okay? Because there's some of our dirty laundry that just doesn't need to be aired publicly. You all agree with me on that?
I agree.
But we still need to do the laundry. Okay? So, having said that, you take care of it yourself. If you cannot take care of it yourself, then I will be more than happy to assist and pray with you and minister so that we can get rid of these things and you can be free. It goes on here to talk about murderers and by the way, you're under a curse if you commit abortion or if you assist an abortion. You're under a curse. That curse can be broken and you can be forgiven. But see, in that you're under a double whammy. Because you've killed the unborn child, but you've also committed murder, so you got a couple of them you got to deal with. It's a real problem, okay? And the reason they're saying now that women who have abortions go through all sorts of mental problems and they're just tormented. Well, sure they're tormented. It's demonic activity in their life that they opened the door for, and now that thing is trying to beat them up and doing a good job. That curse can be broken as well, and forgiveness can come.
Number
Yes.
45 too, those who do not prevent death.
Yeah. Yeah, there's several that... See, these things are interwoven. Okay, you have to understand that. And normally, when a person commits adultery, there are other things involved too. You know, I can get into the curses that come from bestiality. I can get in all these other things that bring curses upon ourselves. And when you get into the sexual mess that occurs, I'm here to tell you it's a mess. And no one just has one simple little sexual curse upon them. There is a whole plethora of these things that you've subjected yourself to. And most of the time, it didn't originate with you. It originated with your ancestors. That's why it's imperative. And I'm going to say a few things now. I'm going to deviate from this a little bit. But you need to listen very carefully to what I'm going to say. In the New Testament, there's a gift in Corinthians, called discerning of spirits. This is not discernment. This is not intuition. This is the gift of discerning of spirits. In fact, I want to turn there, if I may, to the 12th chapter of 1 Corinthians. And I'm going to read out of King James because that's just what I happen to have with me. Some other translation may say it even clearer than this does. I've said this before, but I want to say it again. And I'm going to go into some fundamental stuff here, or what I call fundamental. And I want you to understand something. If you look in the first verse of the 12th chapter of 1 Corinthians, it says, "Now concerning gifts, brethren, I would not have you ignorant." We all have read that, and we know it. Well, I want you to look, if you got a King James, look at it, and the word gifts is in italics, which means it does not appear in the original manuscripts. Very simple. So, you need to read it like this. "Now concerning spiritual brethren, I would not have you ignorant." So it goes on to list some gifts here. What it's really talking about is a person that is pneumatikos. That's the Greek word, spiritual. That word means literally a person that is moving and led by the Spirit of God. Even the verse says this. It says, "Concerning spiritual brethren, I would not have you to be ignorant." So it's talking about a person or people rather than a gift per se. All right, having that as a background, we'll go on. And in verse number 4 it says, there are diversities of gift, but it's the same Spirit. Gifts is not in italics there, okay? Important. And then it goes on down here, "But the manifestation," in verse number 7, "of the Spirit is given to every man to profit withal." And then you skip down to verse number 10. "To another the working of miracles, to another prophecy, to another discerning of spirits, to another diverse kinds of tongues, to another the interpretation of tongues." So it's talking about these manifestations in the person that is pneumatikos, a spiritual person. Well, let me just ask you a question here. Doesn't that tend to say that, well, if these things aren't being manifest in a person, then that person is not spiritual? Boy, that's heavy stuff, isn't it? Because it says, "Now concerning spiritual brethren, I would not have you to be ignorant." And then he goes down and lists these things that are manifestations of the Spirit. And then you ask the question, well, if those things aren't being manifest in a person's life, then is that an indication that that person is not spiritual? Not being led by the Spirit. Not walking completely in the Spirit. Food for thought, isn't it? So that's telling me that churches or ministers that teach these things are done away with and do not allow these things to be manifest in their services or in their congregation are missing the mark. These things should be active in the life of a person that is spiritual. Okay, having said all that, the one that I want to look at here is called discerning of spirits. Not discernment, discerning of spirits. Now, I have read many commentary on this, and you go from this side to that side to just confusion, okay, and everything in between. And many of them try to say it's the ability to determine if it is the Spirit of the Lord or if it's the person's spirit. Well, that's partially true. The discerning of spirits, the gift of discerning of spirits, is directly proportional to the spirituality of the person that is manifesting that gift. Again, that's a heavy word, but you listen to what I said. Because this same book says that the spirits of the prophets are subject to the prophets. Does it not? Mm-hmm. Does it go on to say that we prophesy according to the proportion of our faith. Is that true? So what that says is that as far as prophecy is concerned, the prophet or the person moving in that gift, I'm not calling him a prophet because there's a difference between prophesying and being a prophet. One is an office, the other is a manifestation. Okay? But what I am saying is the person that is operating in the manifestation of prophecy. That prophecy is up to the individual and their spirit whether to prophesy or not prophesy. Also, the depth or involvement or the extent of that prophecy is directly dependent upon the faith of that person that is giving the prophecy.